and welcome to Best in Heritage. My name is Kevin McLean, speaking to you from Blackfoot Territory in Southern Alberta, Canada. My guest is Hans Looijen, CEO of the Dal Hoe Jas Foundation and the Museum of the Mind in Haarlem, which is in the metropolitan area of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Today, he will be sharing on the redevelopment of his foundation's Haarlem Museum site, which opened to the public in 2020 and which was awarded the European Museum of the Year in 2022 by the European Museum Forum, which operates under the auspices of the Council of Europe. Welcome, Hans, and congratulations to you on this remarkable achievement.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Pleasure to be here.
So maybe you can briefly describe the Museum of the Mind to begin with.
Briefly, right, okay.
If that's possible.
Yeah. We say that we are interested in the artwork between your ears. We are located in a very special building, a very old building, which was always used to house people that were unwanted by society. The ill, people who suffer from leprosy, people who were affected by the pest, Black Death. And later it became an asylum. And in Dutch, there's a derogative word for it, dol, and so it's dollhouse. So it's a house for people who are unfit, according to society. And we have taken that building and these walls to turn a whole story around to create a museum and a place about inclusion and neurodiversity. That's in a nutshell who we are. Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. I mean, I think of sites that have these complicated and challenging past histories, and certainly what you're having to think about in the place that you're having to think about is very interesting. So, what is the history of the Haarlem Sites Redevelopment Project and the subsequent European Museum of the Year award, its rationale, its objectives, and its aims?
Yeah, well, the museum started out, the museum organization rented the building from the city of Haarlem in the Amsterdam metropolitan area, as you were saying, in 1998, as it closed down as a psychiatry facility. So, and the last manager said, well, that's a shame now the history of psychiatry and the building will be no longer continuing. So can't we do anything about the history of the place itself? So a few people got together and said, okay, let's create a museum of psychiatry. And they did, and it opened in 2005. And I came in not too long afterwards, after 3 years. And I found, of course, a very great thing to fight stigma and to create more openness around psychiatry. But at the same time, as a heritage site, as a museum, I thought, okay, how can we fit in the lives of people whom we want us to visit? And also, how can these walls really be the supporters of our case for inclusion and diversity? So, and then I came upon visitors' voices who said, well, I visited your museum and it's great what you have amassed and etc. But I'm so glad I don't have this or that, or I didn't live then. And I came to the conclusion that something was severely off. And so if we want people to engage with our past, and they all say, glad this is not me, it's someone else. So we should turn that around. We should create a museum which you visit and you think, yes, that's me. I got the same. I recognize this. And also we're located not too far from the beach. And imagine a family outing, everybody in the car and saying, okay, kids, what are you going to do? Are you going to the beach or to the Museum of Psychiatry? Well, I think the cases would be rare that you would hear a roar from the back and say, so I think, no, okay, we are doing something wrong. We are on our high horses telling everybody what the past is and how it should be viewed, but we're not thinking in ways of the public. And also, are we serving our communities? The communities around us, the communities who are affected by psychiatry who are neurodiverse. So we came to think of how to create a really inclusive story. And then it turned out that the building had structural problems. And it's a very old building, so it's logical. It's the oldest mention is from 1319, so it's over 700 years. So, okay, that something is amiss, you can expect. But we were already in there, so it was a big problem. And we decided to create an opportunity where there was a huge problem. And said, okay, we got to recreate the museum, rethink the museum, think for whom are we in the world? What's our raison d'etre? And we tried to create a museum about you. So not about me, not about scientific knowledge, anything. And we started with three things. How is the care of the mind organized? How was it always done in the Netherlands during these 700 years? The second pillar is what's the thinking about the mind? Where is it located? How come it doesn't work? How come yours is perfect while we are twins and mine is not doing the proper things according to me, not to society of norms. That's something else. Also in popular beliefs, what are people thinking? What are people believing? What are people doing? How are they coping with the neurodiversity they experience? And the third pillar is the imagination of the mind. So it's everything which is not there, we create, our minds create. So yes, that's art. Yes, that's poetry. Yes, that's spoken word. Yes, that's all the imagination our mind creates. So these three pillars, together with our collection and our previous program, became the foundations for a new museum about you.
So when the jury for the EMYA decides that that your institution should get the award, what do you think were the qualities or innovations that you showed that impressed them?
Yeah, well, in their jury report, which is written in English, so I read that. I thought, wow, this is a great museum. Oh, it's about us. So it's always so eloquent when it's put in English to us as native Dutch speakers. And they list quite a number of things. And they said that they gave us the award because of our excellence and the innovative way in which we humanize psychiatry and explore the nature of the human mind. And this epitomizes the power of museums in the social fabric. And especially that part, I think, was very meaningful to me and to our staff, saying, okay, so we do fit in the lives of the people around the museum and the communities around the museum. And furthermore, they said that we are very human-centered as an institution, and we emphasize the experience of people who are considered different. They are considered different. So it's something with society and people affected. And also they applaud us for not only, like many museums do nowadays, they explore programs on mental health, but we go much further, and we really have an immersive program, not only exhibition, but also outreach. And we have a whole scheme for work experience and people with a larger distance to the labor market because of neurodiversity and experienced histories. So we offer work experience and have trajectories to create paid works outside the museum. We don't have the jobs. We helped about 30 people so far since the redevelopment to find paid jobs outside the museum. I think that's one thing they liked about us, which applauded. They said that we stand out as a center of excellence. Thank you. And also in our terms of governance scheme, it is something striking that we don't have any government funds. So we are independent. Most museums in the Netherlands are funded by either the national government, we have provinces like you in Canada, or by cities. We have none of these subsidies. We are supported by care organizations, which is also something they loved, that we have national mental health foundations and agencies which support our programs.
I'm just grateful listening to you, and that this is kind of an opportunity for the world to learn about the existence of
Yes.
your facility, because on so many levels it sounds like you're unlocking some of the challenges where institutions are trying to resonate with their communities. They're trying to develop connections with people and relevancy, and then I mean, that's challenge enough, but then you're going above and beyond and unlocking other challenges that museums are finding themselves in too. So
yeah, well, it's my deep conviction that also we have a museum as a medium, but we should fit in not only in the lives, but we should think as museums and as agencies. What can we do to create a better world? Really, how can we create societies, and how can we contribute to the agenda of societies brought up by our communities to address and help address the problems the communities experience? And in the jury report, it says that the social project is invaluable, which is realized through the museum medium. And we try to find new answers about the human condition and cultivate seeds of hope for a better future about self and society. So that was something which really, really touched me as, okay, yes, this is a recognition that they really understood what we're trying to bring. I sometimes say to ourselves, we're not just a museum, we're kind of a campaigning.
So where you've been on this journey, and it's an ongoing journey, were there, and I imagine there were, I mean, the state of the physical state of the building as an example, what were the challenges that you were up against?
Yeah, the part of us being independent is also that people think, okay, they're doing a good job, carry on. And we really had to take some time to convince the city that it was time to renovate the building. And it was very hard in the beginning to convince the city to do what they had to do. It's their building, to create a new museum, and not to say, okay, this is a structural problem. Okay, you get out of the way, we solve it, and then you do what you have to do. Said, okay, this is a cultural deed. So we really decided to stay in Haarlem. We have a second venue, a location in Amsterdam itself, at the Hermitage building, at the Amstel River. And at some point, we thought, okay, if this is not gonna fly, then maybe we have to look in other directions and see if there's other suitable housing. Which I found a shame, because the story of the building, it's a fit. It's like a coat. It's not the nicest coat, and you have to explain what the coat is about, but it's very fitting. So I think, and I'm very grateful also to the city that in the end they came around and they were convinced and they really supported us. And it became hard. It was COVID, and we have our founding fathers, and we thought, okay, we create a whole program and a new setup, and we tell them, this is what we have and this is what we want, and can you contribute? That was out of the window, of course. And we didn't have any income from our own venue. So, but yet that was also a challenge. But we have overcame, and we won this European Museum Award. So no complaints there.
So the next question, I mean, it kind of applies in a lot of ways, because we're talking about challenges and maybe in your case, the unique challenge of where your resource, your foundation isn't necessarily resourced the same way as other larger national, provincial institutions. And sometimes I wonder that when you're up against the wall like that, but you have this grassroots energy and this community passion, if you think that there's advantages when you're in that position, as opposed to those larger institutions with larger resources? Like, did that benefit you, or was it a negative? And if it was a benefit, what was that benefit?
Yeah, in some way, okay, in the past we have said we are like Calimero, so we're not a threat. We're nice and cuddly, and you can say, "Oh, look at them," and now we're becoming this big chicken, walking around picking which and destroying the grass and going to places where it shouldn't be. It should be in its pen, maybe. So in a way, that's not helpful. It's not helpful to break out of your shell and become bigger. But my deep conviction is that this is a very important topic, mental health. We are all experiencing mental health, and a lot of people experience problems with them. In the Western world, it's 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people who is treated in the mental health care system in his or their life. So that's many people, over 20%. And I think this is not just our theme because we have collections from mental health hospitals. This is not just a government thing, like, okay, try to keep working as long as you can and stay healthy. This is also something we addressed in the education system, at the workplace, among friends and families. So that's my conviction, and that helps. And if you put it that way, yes, there are communities and there are spokesperson who will help you and help you mount your horse and go into the theater and do your rounds. So that helped, and and that way people are always amazed. We're kind of still kind of the surprise of the ball, and I don't mind. Yeah, no. But it's true that when I saw the list of all the contendants, there were 60 for the European Museum Award from 26 European countries. I thought, what are the odds? I mean, there are big institutions, government funded. But now we're in the same row as the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, or the Rijksmuseum in the Netherlands, or a big museum in Valencia on maritime history. So yeah, very, very rewarding. Yeah,
I'm happy for you. Really happy for you. Yeah.
Maybe it's good that people underestimate you. Then you can surprise them, and then you can bring new things to the table. Yeah.
In your statement, or the narrative that was submitted that I read, it mentions that the Museum of the Mind is uniquely humane, interactive, empowering, and activist. Has there been a specific result or results that inspire you to do more? And if so, what were they and why?
First of all, these are the words of the jury. This is from the jury report, so I quote them in the article. But I think for us, what is inspiring is the kind of how can we prompt people into action? It's all good and well that you and I are chatting and say, okay, let's not stigmatize. Okay, we're not Kevin. Oh, we're good. And we go home and on our daily business. So, and we can expect that people who come to visit us or who are engaged in our programs, that they are kind of like-minded, so to speak, on this. But we really wanted people to offer people also a perspective of what can they do? How can we really create this more inclusive and diverse society and embrace neurodiversity? So we took 3 steps. We said, okay, we unfreeze people, so to speak, when they come in the museum. You can interact, and then you can kind of see what state your mind is in. Then we have the whole story, like a stone in the pond is about me, what's my mind. It's about you, him, her, they, them, the rest of the world. And then it's again about us. It's also how people receive care. Normally, it takes a while before you see a doctor. So, and in the end, so the 3rd step is this activist thing, which is the Universal Declaration of the Open Mind, which we created together with experienced people, with activists, with people from the mental health care field. And it reads in ever more closed statements the things we think are important. And we ask people to underwrite this declaration and then post it, so to speak, in the last museum room. You can also do it online. And I think, yeah, that's something which has had a far more impact than we could imagine when talking about that. So we have to create something which you can do individually, but also you can show you're part of the collective. And that is the universal declaration of the open mind, which reads, I try to approach everyone with an open mind. I think that everyone has talents and potential, and therefore the right to education and work, or the right to access meaningful activities according to higher abilities. Third one, I oppose stigmatization and exclusion, and I believe in a society in which every individual should be seen, heard, and allowed to participate. And allowed to participate. It should not be obligatory. We're not there yet, not at all. But that is something, yeah, which has had a bigger impact than imagined.
If there was something that, like an individual thing that your institution did, an aha moment, something that you want to share with other cultural institutions to adopt that you think is really important that we should think about, because that's who you're talking to, what would that be and why?
Oh, yes. I think it's in line with what we talked about earlier, that I'm very much a fan of critical museology. So to investigate what, as a museum, you can contribute to the communities around you. And there's a very interesting program which has been running for quite a few years in United Kingdom, Museum Change Lives, in which they prove through programs that museums do provide a better quality in living and can contribute to health and also to mental health, experienced mental health, well-being, connectiveness, a sense of place, make you proud of the place you come from. So and I think in redeveloping the museum, restudying these ideas, I think that therein lies the aha moment, that you really have to get your fingers in the dough and really, get all the ingredients so that it might rise, and that you have, if you open the oven, you have a great cake, a great bread, which is, a great loaf. So that's for me is something we can do more. I know for the field we're in, people always said it's a very social museum and you have an importance in my life. I recognize what you show on people, experience people. Yes, that's all good. But from an institutional point, to really steer to these goals, social development goals, and contribute to better lives and to a better society even, I think that is our challenge for the future.
And where you've managed to do that, and it's not any one particular thing per se, but was there something that clicked, that worked, that you think other institutions aren't necessarily doing the same thing, or was there?
Yeah, there was last winter, there was a meeting of the Dutch museum organizations, and they asked me to speak on funding and fundraising. Okay, why not ask me on inclusion or diversity? No, this is not a session. Okay. And I was in the room with a gentleman who has a maritime museum, and he was telling that it's so important to the environment and the sea and ocean. Well, very good. I said, why are you sponsored by offshore industry? But they're also doing very good things. And I was really mad at the guy, and people in the room, also started asking questions. So I can't imagine a museum in this day and age still looking the other way and say, yes, but we're safeguarding your heritage heritage. Yes, we regarding your and our treasured history, past artworks, whatever. Sure. But you are part of society as a person, as an employer, as a colleague, So you have to contribute to this, to the whole society. So one thing, we didn't convince the city government on sustainability. So we wanted a sustainable building. I said, nah, you're a national monument, can't do it. And I think it's a kind of a laziness within organizations. It can be done. There are other examples, national monuments, which have solar panels, which have exchange heating with other organizations who need to cool and they need to warm, or the other way around. So I think, and sometimes that annoys me, that there's a kind of a laziness, or that's not my department. I'm already safeguarding all these collections. I'm already doing this and that. Good, thank you. And now your next step is, that's something which is really driving me, as you can hear.
Passion. Yeah. We can never be in too short supply of passion. So
no, never know. Sure. And it's also sometimes confusing because they look at me and think, okay, he's this director of a museum. He's about everything. He has an opinion on everything. Okay, I thought you had a museum of the mind. True. Okay. But isn't that about us? And then how we are engaging with the world around us, also on environmental respect and not only societal. Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah.
Any final words or thoughts or things that you want
final words, Kevin?
Yeah. On this.
Like a guy.
On this.
Yeah. One of the things, you were talking about passion, but also I think what I'd like to share and I hope people can implement is a kind of entrepreneurial thinking. So not too big risk, but yes, some play and some wrestling. We had to wrestle the city through the door and really help them to make the decision. Sometimes you have to convince from passion, and then what we did, we said we have no plan B. This is it. So either you help us or something awful is going to happen. And sometimes it's power play, yes, but it was never bluff. It's really, we had to fight for the building, and we really needed this change around. So, and if people see you're serious, and if people see you're pushing through, in the end they say, okay, we can do this. Don't take it too far, Hans. Calm down, please. Stop yelling. We'll help you to make the next step. And then, and I also learned that I have to look around and, look at all the people in the room and see if they can make the step with us. Sometimes I can be impatient. Yes. Something I'm working on, Kevin.
Personal growth.
Yes.
Personal growth. All right, Hans. This has been a privilege and a pleasure for me to start my morning and to share time with you this week. And I wish that you weren't so far away, because if you were closer, I would be wanting to have a coffee with you and spend time with you and to learn more about what you've been doing, because I think we all would benefit greatly to be in your company.
You're most welcome. Whenever you're heading this direction, let us know. Yes.